Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm a software engineer, and I lost my job in September and wanted to create a video just to share what I've learned so far, share my preparation, how the process is going, just in case it might benefit anybody else that's out there that might be going through the same thing. So for me, I worked at Microsoft for 4 years, from 2020 in July until September of 2024. And since then, I've been unemployed looking for jobs, working on myself, and I wanted to share sort of what that was like. So for me, I have a background in math. I graduated in 2020 with a major in applied math from Western Washington University. From there, I got my job at Microsoft right out of college and worked at Microsoft as a software engineer from 2020 to 2024. Just applying online, applying cold, went through the online assessment, got the call back, and went ahead and got the interview. And it was in 2020, so right in the peak of COVID. Everything was locked down, especially in Washington State, where I was going to school. So in a way, it was kind of a blessing because I had no distractions really, other than just being able to do my homework and prepare for the job interview. The way that I really prepared for that job interview was by going through cracking the coding interview, reading it basically cover to cover, and then practicing the coding challenges in cracking the coding interview, as well as some of algorithms textbook that I worked through. And rather than just grinding leak code, I did do some leak code problems, but mostly I focused on taking those practice problems that were in cracking the coding interview, solving them in Visual Studio Code, my own IDE of choice, and then from there just playing around with them, finding out how to make the solution break, what would happen if the use case was a little bit different, what would happen if I fed a different kind of input, and really playing around and getting to know those problems inside and out rather than focusing on just grinding sheer numbers of leak code, although I did do some leak code. But that really helped me just be comfortable talking through my approach, my solution that I came up with once I was in the actual interview. And when I was in the interview, I also made an effort to have the camera focused, good lighting, sort of the best situation that showed that I was familiar and comfortable in that remote environment, since that's where things were going. Those interviews went really well. I landed the job and started in July of 2020. From there, I stayed on the whole team the entire time, which, kind of looking back on it, I definitely would have benefited from pursuing other roles, moving around a little bit more rather than just staying in my same position the entire time, same team, same everything. It was nice because it was stable and secure, but when I had opportunities to transfer to other teams, I either decided not to, kind of being worried about politically if the team was too close, or if it was just going to be more of the same, and it didn't particularly interest me. But I think looking back on it, I really should have pursued those other roles just to get the change, that sort of thing. Then after about 3 years at Microsoft, I got put on a performance improvement plan. I had some personal stuff going on that I was struggling with, and made it really difficult to be productive. So from there, I had that performance improvement plan, and I had a really great manager that actually worked with me, made it achievable, made it something that I could actually meet the expectations of for the plan. And I completed that, and I thought I was in the clear. I thought, once I was off that plan, then I was okay. But I got a new manager who ultimately I could have gotten along with a lot better. We butted heads over things, and so it leads me into a couple things that I learned from that role. I learned that I needed to get along well, obviously, with people that were in charge, had that power. But also, I learned that I needed to advocate more for the sort of work that I was doing, learn the kind of work that I was interested in, and really pursue that versus just, being totally open to whatever was assigned to me. Because what ended up happening was the work that other folks on the team just really weren't interested in. It was really dry, really boring. I just took all that work, and then it was really dry and boring, really didn't interest me. So they brought that plan back up, and I didn't realize that it was still in the background. So I got brought in one day. There was the call with the manager and HR, and that, I got let go right there. There wasn't much warning for the, once I'd been on the PIP, and had gotten the new manager. Even though it was about a year and a half after that performance improvement plan was put in place, I thought I was totally in the clear, but turns out that they could bring that up at any time that they wanted to. So, from there I got let go, and it's been about 6 months now. So coming out of that job, the personal issue that I was dealing with before really came back in full force. Have an issue with substance abuse, and so I really got into the battle with that. Started to fall back in old ways. Ever since I dropped out of college the first time, that had always been a problem. But I still managed to get through school, get through, and get the job at Microsoft. And I kind of still always just had that going in the background, trying my best, but really fighting with it. And so when I got laid off, it was kind of off to the races for a bit. And after that, I was applying to jobs, I was studying, I was preparing, applying to at least 10, 15 jobs a week, sometimes closer to 50 a week. And it took me probably 3 months to start getting any calls back at all, while being unemployed. So from September until December, I didn't get any calls back except for Amazon. And I had an interview with them in September. It didn't quite go as well as I had hoped. So I took a couple steps back, tried to focus on myself. And from there, I got another call back from Amazon for a front-end development role, which I have some background in front-end. While I was in school, I worked on campus on developing the campus websites, and I also worked for a small startup doing front-end work for them. But that was back in 2017, 2018. Being 2024, I really hadn't dealt with that at all. My role at Microsoft was really back-end focused, APIs and .NET. And so all of that back-end knowledge, had fallen by the wayside. Yeah, and I didn't have the experience with the newest frameworks, React, Angular, that sort of stuff that they were really looking for. So for my interview with Amazon for the front-end role, I nailed the problem solving, the coding, the system design, but I completely bombed the front end role. I completely bombed the front end interview. So really just drew a blank and wasn't able to put anything meaningful down. So I got reset and put on a 1-year cool off for Amazon. And I also interviewed for SpaceX, and I also interviewed for an oil company in Houston. SpaceX, I made it to the second round, but they decided to go with somebody that had experience in that industry with rockets and more embedded system type focus, more embedded system type specialty. So didn't land that, and then also interviewed for the oil company in Houston, which I managed to get an offer, but I was going to be subjected to a hair test, a hair follicle drug test, which goes back 6 months. And given my activities for the 3 months prior, I knew I wasn't going to pass it. So I just didn't take the test, and then they withdrew the offer. And so from there, that was really a wake-up call to not be able to accept that. It was really a wake-up call not being able to accept that offer because of my substance use. So I decided that I was going to go to inpatient treatment and really get things back together. And so from there, it's been about 2 months now since getting sober, and I've managed to land quite a few more calls, quite a few more interviews. So I had one interview with a consulting company, which is going well, has one remaining round, and then hopefully there will be an offer there. Also interviewed with a smaller startup in the area, which seems like really interesting work. Seems like a smaller, lower pressure environment than what I've been dealing with at Microsoft, which really appeals. And then I also have 2 interviews with FANG companies. Don't want to mention them, don't want to mess up my chances just yet, but depending on how those interviews go, I'll have a follow-up and let everybody know what those companies were, how things went, what those interviews were like. So if you want to hear more about that, go ahead and hit the subscribe, hit the like, please, and thank you. So from there, interviewed with the consultant company, which started off with just a simple phone call, and then followed up by, they called it a technical screen, but they mostly just asked me questions about software engineering. There, I didn't write any code, and talked about sort of the work environment that I would be in. The other interview did involve writing code. Met with the CEO for the first meeting, which was kind of a red flag, having interviewed for places where it turned out to be a multi-level marketing scam, that I've dealt with in the past, just before I went back to school. So I was on alert from that, but that call went well. And then the second round interview for that smaller startup, that involved code. While I was doing it, the fire alarm kept going off in my apartment, and had to explain to the interviewer why I had to get up, what that noise was in the background. But even with that going on, I felt like the coding interview went okay. Hopefully there was going to be an offer there. And so basically what I've been doing to prepare now, and what I've been doing to prepare lately, especially for the FANG interviews coming up, is reading a couple books, not so much focusing on cracking the coding interview this time, but I'm reading grokking algorithms and working my way through those examples, and then more of a focus on leak code this time, but also taking those leak code problems, working on them in my own IDE, testing them out with different inputs and different approaches. And also I've really been leaning into Chat GPT for my preparation materials. So that's been things like asking Chat GPT to prepare just a schedule along with the different topics that I'm going to need to know for those interviews. And then it even generates practice problems. And then when I'm working through leak code, I'm also able to ask ChatGPT to solve the problem if I get stuck, or to give ChatGPT the code that I've written and ask it to fix the code, let me know what the issue is. And then it's really great with ChatGPT because I don't just ask it for the right answer, but I also take that time to really understand the solution it's giving to me, asking why is the index starting at 1 versus 0? How does that benefit? What is the overall approach? Things like sliding window or binary search. It does a really good job of explaining, how those work and when to use them. And so that's been really helpful. I feel a lot better going into these upcoming interviews here in about 3 weeks for the FANG interviews, and really looking forward to it. So I'd really like this video to be something that folks that are in a similar position that they can really learn from. So I'm just going to recap the different things that I've learned, and hopefully there's something here that can help you in your journey with if you're unemployed or looking for a new job. Hopefully you can learn and take some of this with you. So from Microsoft, some of the things that I learned, number one was to advocate for myself and advocate for the sort of work that I wanted to be doing, rather than just taking whatever work was given to me and not, advocating for myself, picking up extra work that was more aligned with what I'm interested in, and then building momentum that way. I also learned at Microsoft that I needed to be okay with switching roles, rather than being really worried about the politics, worried about how my direct manager is going to take it, or how the skip level is going to take it. Just being okay with taking that new role, really pursuing it, not putting it on the back burner, just staying where I'm at. I really learned at Microsoft to not get comfortable and to not just take what they're giving me, and to be sure that I'm really advocating for myself. From Microsoft and from before, I also really learned that it's important that if you're dealing with a substance abuse problem, to get it dealt with, to seek outside help, be that a counselor, AA groups or 12-step stuff if you're willing, or you can always go to inpatient treatment or outpatient treatment, a lot of things like that, just for extra accountability, rather than trying to keep it under control, fighting it. It just ends up being a lot more work, in my experience, to fight that substance abuse problem, trying to hide it from others rather than just dealing with it. It's just so much easier to deal with it, even though it might seem really intimidating at first. Especially a lot of those places seem scary at first, but getting that help really helped me quite a bit. It was just amazing how many more interviews started coming through, the caliber of the interviews that started coming through, and just how much easier it became to prepare when I wasn't dealing with active substance abuse like that. Another thing I learned at Microsoft was, and it's really important, it kind of seems obvious in hindsight, but it's really important to get along with your superiors, even if you don't agree with them. I can't help but think that if I had gotten along better with my manager, that I would still be at Microsoft. But it is what it is. Hindsight is always 20/20. And now for some of the lessons that I have, for preparing for a technical interview as a software engineer, that sort of stuff. I really, for me, it's been good to work through textbooks like Grokking Algorithms, Cracking the Coding Interview, System Design Interview by Alex Zhu. All of those are really great resources. Sometimes it can be almost information overload where if you have too many books to work from, but for me, just chipping away bit by bit. Also taking the given study materials, the prep materials like for Facebook and Amazon, for Meta and Amazon, that they give you a wealth of information for preparing. So really leveraging that information, leveraging your recruiter, asking them all the questions you can think of, all of that, what really benefited me to make it as far as I did in the interviews. And also going forward, taking that information to really make the most of my upcoming interviews is something that I'm really trying to do. I also have really learned to leverage ChatGPT for studying, as far as getting study plans, solving coding problems that I'm stuck on, and really using ChatGPT, rather than something that just gets me the answer. Using ChatGPT is something that more like a professor in office hours. So getting the problem, solving the problem, asking questions to really get the solid understanding of why that problem is, and then to the point where you can solve those problems on your own, because it's important to not rely too much on ChatGPT while solving the coding challenges, leak code, that sort of stuff on your own, because then once you get to the interview, you're not able to use it right now, not at least in a way that's above board, because I've heard of plenty of people using ChatGPT in the background, different AI in the background during their interview. So you could try it, but I wouldn't recommend it. It always just seemed like it would be too awkward and too easy to catch, in my experience. So for me, it was really a focus on getting the understanding of the problems, getting an understanding of the material, rather than just memorizing and grinding through as many leak codes as possible. At least for me, I think some people's brains work like that, but for me, I'm not someone that can just memorize things and just maintain that memorization, retain that information. For me, it's got to be something that I fully understand, that I've practiced, that I've used, in order for me to remember it. Also, I learned that both from in the past at Microsoft and from now, that preparing for the soft skill answers just by talking through your examples. So thinking about examples for, what was a bad decision you made, what were some of your greatest achievements at your last role, or maybe personal projects that you've worked on, really having those examples ready in your brain by talking about them with other people. So you don't even have to talk with other people that are technical about those sorts of things. It's even better practice if you find someone that's non-technical to explain a technical thing in a way that someone that's non-technical can understand. So for me, I was talking to my mom, I was talking to my girlfriend, I was talking to people that were just friends that were non-technical. And that was really helpful for me to talk through those examples so that they're smoother and they flow in the interview when you're under pressure in that, kind of nerve-wracking environment, that you're able to talk through those examples comfortably and really hit the points that you're trying to. Some other things that I've learned is to just throughout the job hunt is to apply to as many jobs as you can. At first I was applying to just a handful of jobs every week, maybe 5 or 10, and not seeing those calls back. And what I ended up doing was just applying shotgun, making it a numbers game, and applying to as many jobs as I could really stand. So it ramped up to applying to 30 to 50, sometimes closer to 100 jobs a week. That really improved my callback rate as well. Maybe not the rate, but just the number of callbacks that I was getting. I was starting to get more hits. Finding a company, going to their career site, applying to as many roles as possible, and then from there, hopefully getting a callback on one thing. And companies do see that you're applying to multiple roles. If they see you apply to 30 roles, it raises their eyebrow a little bit. It gets them, interested in you more than somebody that just sends in one interview, or more than someone that sends in just one copy of their resume, applies to one role. Unless it's a really good fit, then you're probably not going to get a call back. So for me, that was really big, just the sheer number of roles that I was applying to, so that it was, my odds were better that I would apply to a job that was a good fit, and that the company would see as a good fit. The hiring managers or recruiters would see me as a good fit. Another thing I learned is, if you can, wait until you have a position that's a better fit. So like me, interviewing for the front end role at Amazon, that really wasn't the move. What I should have done was waited until I had an opportunity to interview for a back-end role or more of just a all-around software engineering role rather than a front-end focused role, because now I didn't get the job, didn't do well in the interview, and now I have a year-long cooling off period, so I'm not able to interview again for a role that might be a better fit at Amazon. Also, something that really helped me to start to get callbacks was leveraging ChatGPT to dial in my resume. So taking a job listing, taking that information, giving it to ChatGPT along with my resume, giving ChatGPT a list of my past achievements and experience along with that resume, and then specifying to ChatGPT that you want your resume to be something that will come up in the automated systems and is going to be picked up by the AI of the companies that you're applying to. And that really helped me go from no hits to 10 plus callbacks, which has really made a big difference. So if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm planning on doing another video to follow up, maybe make weekly videos just to update everybody on how the job search is going, if I've changed my preparation approach in any way. So feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.